All right, it's October 3rd, 2023, 7:32 PM. I'm going to call the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Members present, myself, John Tian, Bob Shabbat, Becca Sinofsky, Joseph Hall, and I'm going to seat Bill Bennell for Andy Marco tonight. Items on the agenda. No applications for receipt tonight, no public hearings. Brings us to new business. Item 1, review of zoning regulation changes per PA 23-142.
So this is the memo I just handed out and emailed around. Not a huge thing, but we are required, towns are required to certify to the state compliance with this by December. So really the purpose of this meeting is so that we meet the timelines. So Public Act 23-142, which becomes effective October, or was effective October 1st, requires that we certify to the state that we do not treat family child care homes or group child care homes located in a resident differently than we do a single family or multifamily dwelling. So basically, if you allow a single family dwelling in a particular zone via a zoning permit, you can't require anything beyond that for what a lot of people think of as an in-home daycare. So I'll probably mix them up, but family child care home is up to 6 kids. Group child care home is 7 to 12. So basically, we have to allow people to take care of children in their home without having a special permit or any of those things. I guess some of this is in response to post-COVID, there being a sort of a child care shortage. I don't know, I don't have kids, but
They're still required to meet all the requirements of the state in order
Yes.
to do that.
so they have to be licensed by the Office of Early Childhood.
Okay.
So our regulations were way complicated in how we define different things. We don't have these uses listed. And so in thinking about the simplest way to meet this criteria without trying to change and unpack everything else, I have shown in red sort of the proposed modifications. So my first suggestion is to modify section 3 to clarify that a daycare center, which is not what we're talking about, is a primary use of land. We had in there, everything else is the same, but this is like a traditional daycare center, commercial operation. But if you go to the next page, you'll see group daycare home. I'm proposing that we add an accessory use. And so the way that I'm suggesting we set this up is to allow these and basically call them accessory uses, because that to me is how they're being defined. They're allowed to be conducted in a home, but it's first a home. So I didn't want to create a new class of uses. I didn't want to try to figure out which zones it should be allowed in and all these other specific criteria. I figured that we would call them accessory uses. And then you go to the third page, you'll see my proposed addition, which is for any child care home or group child care home that complies with the standards set forth by the Connecticut Office of Early Childhood. And so this would allow them to get a permit via home occupation from staff. So they still have to demonstrate that they have a license from Office of Early Childhood. It would not be allowed in the DI zone, for example, because a single family home is not permitted in the DI zone. But to me, this is the simplest path forward to be in compliance without trying to hash out the various changes and deal with the fact that we have to allow it the same way we'd allow multifamily, et cetera. And I just realized I carried a heading over on the bottom of page 2, which is incorrect. It's obviously section 11, it's not section 3.
So that should say section 11.
Yeah. It's just a header. So we've talked about home occupations, we've talked about the fact that our regulations need to be updated, but it's complicated. And so you'll see above, on page 3, you'll see all those other standards. So those are the standards which someone has to meet if they're gonna get a home occupation approval from staff. And not being allowed to use more than 25% of the livable floor area, only giving them approval for 1 year. Some of those other criteria may be important for other home occupations, but are not relevant to a home daycare. So, that's why rather than modifying all of it, I'm proposing to change a or add a specific line for these uses.
Rand, and this is just wordsmith, like a family child care home, is that what they use in the law?
Yeah.
Okay, cause that makes it sound like a group home type thing for small children.
Right, those are the two, and it's, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what the Office of Early Childhood uses. They're defined in section 19 of the
Okay.
statute, so we're just carrying those terms.
Just curious, cause
Yeah.
it's in-home daycare makes more sense,
Right,
verbiage wise, but.
yeah, and we have a bunch of different terms that we use, but we don't actually define them. And actually, what I will do is, I will add the statutory reference to that section 11.
So, that many child in home daycares in town. Left.
A bunch of years ago, they said anything up to 6 is as of right. So because of that, we really wouldn't see up to 6. I couldn't tell you how many we have. Because they wouldn't come in. So I'm not sure. I don't know if through the Department of Consumer Protection portal, when you look at all the licenses, I don't know if we can query by that. We query by pretty much everything else.
Well, there's some people that do it on license too.
Right, yeah.
Probably more common than not.
So if this is close, what we would do is refer to CROG, schedule a public hearing for, depending if we have the time, a November public hearing, workshop it further, and then we'd be able to certify for December that we were in
It
compliance.
looks reasonable to me. No, I don't have any further suggestions to what they had, you clarified it, so.
It's a good quick fix. Yeah, I mean, we can adjust all the home occupation stuff, but I think that's gonna take more time.
Is there any reason to?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, with the amount of time we have for December, it's easier to keep it simple. I think, you want me to go on to number 2 or?
No, other, on item 2 under new business review of zoning regulations for codification.
So. The only thing I kind of toyed around with this, I'll pass this out. Kind of the best way to approach it. So we're starting that whole codification process, we've given all the regs to general code, subdivision regs, aquifer. So they're doing a review and we're gonna be getting feedback. They're gonna do new or reorganize the document sections and all those things. So I really didn't want to print an entirely new set of regulations because in a couple of months, we're gonna have a whole new set. So what I did is I just put together an outline just to show you the sections that have been modified since we last printed it, that kind of have it in one spot. So
When was the last printing? What year?
So we last printed them in 2020. Just before COVID actually, and everybody went home. So we did early on, we made changes to the design commercial zone. Which is section 5.04. 5.05 was the FedEx text amendment for surface parking lots. 5.12 was the South Willington Village mixed use regs. We just did section 7.07 and section 7.10, which were the accessory dwelling units and accessory outdoor dining. Section 8 was part of the FedEx application as well, which modified the percent of lot coverage from 25 to 50 for surface parking lots, which was part of that section 5.05 change. We removed the 11.20 high intensity uses language, which was a lot about like septic capacity, and if there was a gallons per day and it increased setbacks, it was a lot of health code stuff, and so that was taken out when we did the design commercial zone changes. We also removed commercial logging because that is not under the authority of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So that was all part of that. 12.15 was the SDZ, or what's left of it. And section 14 is where we had all those varying tables based upon liquor permit class, what could be allowed and what it was called. And it was sort of an old school classification. Liquor control doesn't really use that same permit class now. So it wasn't at all aligned with the types of permits that you'd get from the state. So those are all have been updated. We have a final document, which is what general code is reviewing. So we can certainly run sections, or I can give you all of these individually, but it seemed like having it all in one cohesive document in a couple of months was probably easier. But I just wanted you to have something at least to start.
Well, it's pretty clear.
That's good.
So this is just wrapping up everything we've done in the last like year and a half.
Yeah, well, probably more than that, like 2 years. So if you're thinking about it, or you're reading the regs, or you had a question and it falls into one of those sections, at least you'll know that that was one that was modified.
Okay.
It should not be very long before we at least have a draft.
All right.
So.
Any questions or comments? John, you good?
I'm good, yeah.
Okay. All right, so that'll move on.
And yeah, I guess I rushed you through number one. So are you guys comfortable with me starting the process?
Yes.
Okay. We will do that.
All right, brings us to F, unfinished business, which we've done tonight. On to item G, approval of minutes from September 19th, 2023.
I'll move to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Can we just have my name corrected on page 2, right before letter E, from an I to a Y at the end?
Okay. Get that, Mike?
Yep, we'll make sure it's.
Don't know how it's the only one in the whole thing.
Bill, you had something?
No,
Okay.
I thought you were
Oh, okay,
asking for a vote.
any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
As with the correction that. I guess last name. All right, item H, correspondence, item 1, Mansfield subdivision regulation amendments.
So this is what the meat of the packet is from. This was just a correspondence item that was sent to us. Actually, I'm the one working on this with Mansfield. They're doing a number of changes to the zoning regs, inland wetland subdivision. And so this is a referral from the Mansfield planning director. they're not required to do referrals of everything, but they're referring all of their subdivision regulation changes out to adjoining municipalities. So if you go through, you'll see the red line, their regulations are wildly beyond where they should be with some of the scope and authority, like asking applicants to provide mapping on the microclimates of the property.
Yeah, that's funny, I just would open to that, like wondering what's.
Prevailing summer breezes so what this is intended is to only make changes where they exceed or do not align with statute. So what they would actually require is you to come in and give them a plan, a conceptual yield plan to show how many lots you could get, and then you give them a separate plan to show them what you wanted to do. So if you wanted to do a conservation subdivision or you want to do rear lots, first you had to give them a plan to show what your maximum was and required them to design it effectively twice, which is really
It's expensive,
expensive.
but they're chopping a lot out.
Yeah. So we're trying to dial it back, and it's been a very interesting conversation when you take away language that people become really comfortable with being able to rely on, but you can't make people design it twice and then decide which plan you like better. So there's no required comment. If you see something that you feel very strongly about and you want to comment, certainly welcome to, but this is just a notification.
Okay. Yeah, pretty major cleanup.
Yeah.
Have anything that let's talk about it, man.
And if you see something that later that you have a question on or that you want, just let me know. And
Okay.
if we need to reach out or ask a question or whatever, we can do that.
Well, they've been zoning a lot longer than we have with, well, subdivision regs since 1957.
That's me.
First effective.
They, yeah, these are quite a bit more involved there.
All right. Brings us to item I, public participation for items not listed on the agenda. So since no one's here in person tonight, anyone online? Any hands? Okay. Item J, staff report and discussion. I don't see anything under there. You got anything?
No, the only question I had is it looks like our, so based upon referring this out, it won't make it for the second meeting in October. We won't have enough time. So if we get the timing correct, the soonest would be the first meeting in November, but that's election day. So I don't know. I know we've just talked about it in the past. I just wanted to, if I have the 2023 meeting scheduled, we'll see if we moved it. Yeah, so I think when we talked about it before, we skipped that. So we have a meeting on the 17th.
Okay.
If we don't have any applications, we can cancel that if you'd like, or we don't have to.
Let's see what we have.
Okay. And then
Get closer.
we only have one meeting in November, which would be the 21st,
Okay.
which I think was based upon the fact it would have been on election day when we discussed the annual
Okay.
meeting calendar. So these hearing items will go for the November 21st meeting. So that'll be a public hearing for this amendment. So yeah, I'll let you know how things look at the 17th meeting. These don't come on the 7th.
So that's, our meeting is on the, what is it, 21st?
Yeah, here we go.
Let's see here.
So we scheduled 3rd to 17th.
And Thanksgiving is when, the 23rd? Okay. I'm gonna be in Texas, I gotta traveling, but not on the 21st, I'm good, I'll attend remotely.
Okay.
Probably 22nd, so I guess travel's busy. busy around Thanksgiving.
That's true.
Get hung up at an airport,
Yeah.
turkey at an airport restaurant.
It'll be a goose that went through the engine that.
Yeah,
It's very infectious and eat arm ball.
there we go. It's just like chicken, right?
Yeah,
Right,
what doesn't?
yeah, true. All right, it's 7:52 PM, meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone.